Hello, Manu. Thank you so much for being a part of the dialogue series to kickstart Conscious Umeå. Your path from electronics engineering to product design is really interesting, actually. I'd love to know more about the what, why, and how of you have become an interaction designer now. Well, what specific aspects of your education and lived experience have led you to pursue this path of being a hybrid practitioner?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Because like, yeah, again, the thing is like, as you said, like this hybrid practitioner, because like that comes from a guy like who is trying to find his existence, like in like when you think about like trying to solve a lot of issues out there, and you don't know like where you actually fit in. So that's when I thought like, yeah, maybe like I can call myself like a hybrid organism, like in this whole thing. So yeah, but I started with electronics, and at that time like the problem was I didn't know like what to do, and it appeared like the engineering is a decent place to go, and is like I felt like engineering was cool because like that time like engineers were like the ones who like did build all the cars and like the machines and things. I thought like I'll be going to do that, but like I didn't do anything any of those things. I just maybe like, yeah, I was a bit attached to like robotics in the beginning, so I tried to make one of that. But again, like after that, like I was like so what at lost like what to do as a career. And then like I don't know, like I got in an easy job as a software developer, and that's where like this whole thing of like, yeah, what do you call this, product design came into being. Because when I was doing that, I was again like I was, it was a big company, like some 100,000 people, and I was just one guy in that, and I was like I was missing that exclusivity of like what you are doing. Was like I know like just like me, there is like 1,000 others like doing the same thing, and there is no like there is no visibility also. Like what do I make? I don't know, like some kind of a server is getting managed in like some corner in US, and I'm sitting in Chennai, like remotely calibrating it, and that's it. And nobody outside knows like what I'm doing, and there is nothing like I'm leaving outside as like a physical thing. So I thought like, yeah, what can I do? And then I found out this career known as like product design, and that's when like it took me to Mumbai, where I studied my master's in product design. But again, like that's when I came to know like, yeah, there is things like what do you call like aesthetics in like the products which you can work with, and product design is not just like, yeah, beautifying something which you find. It's more than that. Like it's more like a problem solving, like in simple terms, like you can call it a problem solving, but you take a thing which is out there, like a thing which is yet not out there, and it's almost like you are inventing every day. So you like begin a day with like a problem which you can find, and this product is still not there. So it's almost like that part is like pretty interesting. So I can build a thing like every day, and sometimes like I can have conversations with people who actually use my product. So that is kind of like so what do you call engaging and welcoming, and like it's also rewarding experience. Like so like I remember like when I go to a maybe like a supermarket, sometimes the product which I design will be there, and I can have a conversation with the people there, like, yeah, how do you feel about the product? And maybe like say they say some bad things about it, maybe say they say good things, but at least like there is something visible which I made, so I can say like I made this. So this is why I chose design. But again, like the problem with product, they got a problem with product design because it is a physical thing, and there is a limit to which like a physical thing can like change your experience. Because now like when you have like a glass slab with you like all the time, which defines the experience you have every day, there's a lot more things you can do through a simple thing like a screen, like a phone, than like a physical product can change your life. So like because like a Google map can change the whole way you navigate than a like even a car. Like car is just like an object, a platform for you to travel, but Google Maps defines a lot of other things. Like it gives you access to like where restaurants in remote corner in like maybe like Africa or like so that. So this thought like there is more than what I can do in a product, I can do in like interaction design. So that's why I thought like maybe interaction design is a better place to go. So that's how like the whole journey was, like from electronics to product design to interaction design. So when I look back, it's a mix of everything. That's why I call like I'm a hybrid, like kind of do a bit of engineering, a
Yeah.
bit of product design, a bit of interaction design.
Yeah, that's fascinating because more often than not, people think that things that are tangible, things that you can touch and tactically engage with, are the most rewarding. But it's interesting to see that after having studied engineering, now as you're moving towards experience and interaction, you're like, you find the work that is more humanitarian in some sense,
Yeah,
like something that's more in something that comes in contact with people, more rewarding. So that's just interesting. So
definitely.
in your work, I've seen that you have written something like you like being in the place where humanity meets technology.
Yeah, that's right.
So, I mean, in your experience, what kind of projects have you done, or what kind of work do you imagine yourself doing and enjoying in the spirit of that particular phrase, humanity
Yeah,
versus technology?
that's interesting because again, coming from an engineering background, for me technology was everything because I was so, what do you call, addicted to understanding like what is new out there in the market, like all these like kind of new processors and like the new nuances of the technology. I was there, but like since when I started doing design, like I felt like I'm like it is still there, but like what values is like the stories of the people, like the people there and what they are doing with this thing. Because like sometimes like I feel like there is so many things out there which you actually don't need it. It's like it exists there like because like yeah, maybe like somebody felt like yeah, there need to be something like that, and there's a technology to help that. And that way we are building things like I don't know, like it's almost like I'm building like a lot of junk out there. So yeah, some of the technology need not be there at all. So I had this doubt in like when I started interaction design. So I asked my professor. So I asked him kind of like I was always of the opinion that like there is a lot of interesting technology out there in the defense field and space and aeronautics and things like that. So isn't it like our job to like take those technology and like put it into like the human's life or like the person's life? And he was like, no. And I'm like, that's not how design works. So in like when I think about design, like so it's our job as a designer to tell like what technology should exist. So we kind of like talk to the people and yeah, just ask them like what they need and find an interesting need and think of a solution that could give birth to a technology. So it's almost like I try to define these stories, and that's why I told like this humanity meeting technology. It's almost like this technology is yet not there. So I'm defining, yeah, there's a need like this for the user, and so this technology has to come. So like I'm just kind of like the matchmaker here, playing the matchmaker. So I'm just trying to find a need for a technology to exist, and then like some clever person like out in the world can like build this technology and like so that's at least like what I really want to do. So I want to like think about like what technology we can bring into the world.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because that's exactly what we're trying to figure out through the whole work that we're doing in conscious design. Because what we look at is how people live their lives and what kind of lifestyle they have and what kind of cultural patterns come out of these lifestyles and these living relationships between people and place, for example. And like you mentioned, a habitat, of course, or a space is a very tangible product, if you want to call it, in 3D, right? But the technology, or like even in terms of the interfaces in which people and places can interact, that might be a little more interesting. So yeah, going back to say this very idea, what kind of phenomena do you think, or like do you feel most inspired or provoked by? Like for me as an architect working with psychology, for me well-being is really important. So with that as an example, what kind of psychosocial phenomena like inspire you and provoke you, and what do you seek to sort of embody in your work?
Okay, so I'm not sure like if there is any phenomena particularly that kind of inspires me always, but what I always try to do is like I try to look for stories in like people's life. Because like whenever I try to do something, I try to tell that to like how this, like let's say a technology or like an object which exists in my life. So I see it, is it a, like kind of like a movie. So like every day like I'm using that product, so that got a a role in the way I live my life. So it can be even the mouse I use, or like the headphones, or like even the chair I sit on. So these are all like part of like my story as an individual. So like whenever I design something, I always try to look at like what is this new story I'm bringing there, like when I build such a thing. So I feel like, and I try to do that always. And unless there is a good story that I can say, I feel like the design is not complete. So there should be something, like I have to define like the role of like what this thing is doing in my life, and like it could be like, and I have to attach it to like maybe like something which people can easily relate to. Like for example, maybe the chair. Like if I design a new chair, I could think of like how maybe like sitting on the lap of my mother or something. So like it's almost like I can link to like a person, or like maybe like it could even be like something, some story that I heard like as a kid. Like for example, as a superhero, maybe like uh, think about like your favorite superhero. Like take an interesting example of Harry Potter. Like the things you see in the Harry Potter, they're all like what do you call it, very magical, very enchanted. And how are those things in the real life? Maybe like the map is like the Google map here right now, or like the invisibility clock is like something similar. Like you don't need to have an invisibility clock here, but like that could be your privacy settings in the browser. So these kind of things. So it's almost like you are taking these stories and maybe like putting that into your real life. So this is what kind of inspires me always, like the kind of stories which I can bring there.
Yeah, and in your work as a master's student here in Umeå at UID, do you have any specific examples to share? Like from what I've seen in your work, I Cube, Shift, and Aura, they're my
Yeah.
favorite. If you could, like, if you had to sort of explain it through those examples, how would you pitch that? Like, what kind of stories have you formulated there?
That's right. Because like I think almost every project in that I try to like tell a story in the end, like how this is going to help me. Especially like Cube, which was like, I don't know, it was like a 2-3 months project. And in the beginning, I didn't know like what to do during that, because like what I had to design was I had to choose a fluid assemblage. What we call fluid assemblage is something which kind of changes its character over time. So an example is like anything, like it can even be a software like a Facebook. Think about Facebook, like how it was in 2009 and how it is now. So it's almost like an organism which has evolved over time, and it has changed its character and all those things. And same thing happens with the what do you call a voice interface. And Alexa, like as it kind of like learns more about you, it can even change your character. It can learn your name, and maybe like next time it talks to you, it kind of addresses you in a different way, and the way you talk to it also changes. So this was an interesting thing. And we are kind of like surrounded by fluid assemblage now. Like anything you take, like there is what's anything you smart or like conscious, you can say like it has got this fluid property. And so I took this thing because like I really wanted to work with voice interfaces. First of all, like I never worked with that. I never used an Alexa. And I kind of got this curiosity or the habit of like taking things which I've never worked in. So that everything is like what do you call a new perspective for me. It's almost like a kindergarten kid like seeing something like firsthand. So that's why I took like this voice interface, and I was thinking like what can I do there. And again, like I was thinking like what are the stories behind voices and like the things like that. And so I thought like what if there is something like I have an Alexa with me. Okay, it has been there with me for 2 years, and then I bring a new Alexa. How does it differ? Like for example, both are like same objects. Like the only thing is like I interacted with one more, and the next is the new one. Then maybe like there could be like a friendly side to one, and the other thing is a kind of like a stranger how it talks to me. So I was thinking like it's almost like the same thing what happens like when I meet a stranger and a friend like who has been with me for 2 years. So this thing was my like initial hunch. And then came this whole idea of language, because like the same thing happened. Like for example, when we were friends for like when I had a friend like for 2 years, the way I talk to him, like there becomes a lot of like the language kind of changes. I started adding like new lingos and all, like hey what's up, like how is it, like, but I don't do that for the stranger. I'll say like hey how are you. So it's a bit more formal. So this kind of lingos, how that get affected in the what do you call this voice interfaces, can I bring that there? Is it possible? And will people accommodate it and all those things? So these were my initial thoughts. And then I was trying to find out like what is a problem we normally face with voice interfaces. And one problem I as a person always feel is like when I talk about Google, I don't know, my phone, the Google in my phone start talking back to me without even like me talking to it. And it same happens with Siri. When I'm talking to my friend about Siri, Siri talks to me. It's as if like it is listening to me all the time. So I was like, yeah, why is it always listening to me, and how I can like solve for this like privacy issues of voice assistants, I call it. And this term assistance is really cool. Like was it's almost like an assistant for you. It's not like a companion. So I was wondering like why do you call this an assistant? So I had all these like thoughts in my mind, and I was thinking like how can I solve for this? And then like I thought like one interesting thing is I'm coming from Kerala in India, so like when I meet a person from my place, we talk in the same language. And sometimes like I talk in the same language so that like the person next to me doesn't understand, so it's almost like I'm talking to I'm kind of giving the information from a stranger but through the language I use. So I was wondering, can I use the same thing here? And this led me to like maybe like build a language for a voice system. So it's almost the final thing was like I created a what do you call it, a voice assistant, like I call it a voice companion. And the companion, which I call it Cube, and it has its own language. So you have to learn the language to interact with it. So like if I want to tell Cube to switch on the light, I have to understand what is the what is cubish for the lamp, or like what is like what do you say switch on in cubish. So I created like a small what do you call a small language, you can say, like. And just it was kind of like mixed with Japanese and Maori with nouns and verbs, just like a fantasy language. And I use that language so that like Cube only understands that. And if I talk in English, Cube doesn't understand anything. So I created this kind of like a small dictionary first of all, and then took it to people and tried to understand like whether they find it interesting. And it was like they felt a bit boring because like you have to learn a language first of all, and there is no involvement of Cube. So I kind of have to learn something and then talk to it. Then I was thinking like, can the Cube be also involved in like teaching me like what the language is? So then I took this a bit further and created another application, which was a camera browsing application. So you take this camera like in the phone and look at different objects around you, and the Cube tells me like what that object is. So I focus on a lamp, and it tells me like it is known as like I forgot the word, but yeah, let's say like one word for the lamp. And then like if I switch it on, it says like it is switched on. So I know like yeah, what is switch on lamp means. Then I tell Cube that yeah, do this, and it does that. So it's almost like I am using language as a medium to interact with or navigate this privacy concerns with the object. And at the same time, like this whole caring aspect also come in, because like caring means like you are learning a language to interact with it. It's almost like when I was in Bangalore, so I used to like encounter a lot of people where like people encourage you a lot, like if you learn their native language. So it's almost like caring for the community and like the people there. So I thought like it's almost like the same thing here, but with an object. So this is the story I try to bring in this whole experience. So that's what I was telling about the story of what learning the language of a thing to interact with it and care it. At the same time, it cares back by being like a bit conscious about your privacy concerns, and so it doesn't listen to like whatever you say in the your daily life. So yeah, I'm not sure like how successful it will be, but like this is the stories I'm trying to bring the technology in.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating, because you're mixing so many things. Like, I'm guessing augmented reality was a part of it, because you would be scanning the environment and then it would be, you know, building upon that. And then,
Yeah.
of course, linguistics, and also the cultural connotations of what a
Yeah.
language really means, and then tying it back to everyday interactions. Like, yeah, as a designer, when I listen to this is exactly what technically any designer should do. And I wonder, I mean, this begs the question, is this the way you were taught to think as a designer, or do you think uh, it's
Sorry.
special to the way you are? I mean, it might be a controversial question, but
Sure. Go ahead.
no, yeah, is it something that all designers are taught to think like? I wonder.
Ah, I think so, because like when I started learning design, I used to hear this term that like every design you make has a story behind it, and I didn't understand it at first, like what does that mean? Because I see like a mug in front of me. What is the story behind that? Like only story I can think of is like the person who made it. Like what was the what? effort that went into it, and maybe like that's a story. Because but when I started like learning interaction design, it was more about like the stories which is embedded in there, like how is that building a story around me. So if I can say a good story around me, then I feel like the product is well designed. If I can't, then like I feel like it's not so well designed. So I think, yeah, maybe like a lot of people like think in the terms of the stories. I think especially like here, like we were taught to present in such a way that there is a story behind like everything you do. So you kind of like try to see like, yeah, what is the story I can bring here? Like when I think about like a person's life in a day, so I see like the person is waking up in the morning. He's like he did his brushings and all, and went had his breakfast. Maybe like after that, like he is having a chat with his, I don't know, kid or something, or like maybe like he's having a private conversations on during a con call, and then your cube is sitting next to you, and what is it doing? What is the story there? And so I think about like all these stories, like what happens, and then if there's an interesting story, then I say, because like you always know, like when you watch a movie, if it's boring, you'll leave the halfway out of the movie. So I have to see like, yeah, this is an interesting way, and I have to be excited about that story. And then I try to like tell these two through my stories. I think like it's all about like stories, like what you can bring in, because like you can't talk about experience without any story, right? It's like if you talk about experience, like you know, like if I went for a trip, that's an experience I'm saying, and it's a short story that I'm saying. So here, when I'm creating experience, there should be a story behind it. So I think a story is the core part of like anything we do.
Yeah, that makes sense. But the next follow-up question that it begs is a story. Is it an augmentation of reality, or is it just patterns at the end of the day? Do you pick parts of facts and then weave a narrative together so that it makes sense? Or is it the plain truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, the way it exists in reality, that you sort of weave it into your work?
No, but I think like I try to get inspired from like this like reality which I can find around me, and try to build the narrative around that product in that reality, if that makes sense. Because all these stories are that out there. For example, like when I talk about Cube, like when I talk about the language part, it's something that's already there. Like when you talk to a stranger, like try to mask the informations of like whatever you want to like mask from him, or like it could even be the stories which I have heard like somewhere else. For example, like how this whole aspect of the camera prototype came was like this movie Arrival, in which like the aliens are coming to the earth, and humans are trying to interact with them through a language, and both doesn't know each other's language. They talk in their language, and then they try to understand each other. And the first thing they do is like when they show the symbol, like they show like written human, and they say like human means me. So that way it's like show and tell. So I was wondering like how is show and tell when it comes to uh, a cube. So it's almost like I'm showing cube, this is it, and it tells me like what is that in its language. So it's like I took a story from like a narrative from whatever I found, and tried to push it here. So, and it felt so apt, because I don't have to build a story from out of nowhere. It's not like I'm not a filmmaker or director here. It's just like I find an interesting story, or like from a person's life, and I try to put it here. So it's like, yeah, again, like matching, like matchmaking with humanity and the technology. So that's what happens here.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, of course, because in some sense, as a designer, since you're accountable, you also have to act responsibly. Creativity isn't everything. There is
Right,
some
right.
kind of an ethical constraint in the sense that you might have to work with people and their cone of perception and reality, perhaps. Yeah, that's interesting. Going back to the cities, I mean, in the conversation itself, in the last 20 minutes, you've brought up at least three cities, but I'm sure there are more cities that you've lived in.
Yeah.
Uh, so the question is, which city feels like home to you? And has living in different cities impacted your decisions, especially when it comes to being a designer?
Yeah, of course, because like when you think about like thinking of designing a product, you have to always think about like where it's going to exist, or where is it going to live in. It could be like an application, it lives in a phone, but like in which context, like in which socio-cultural context you can say like it lives in. So that's equally important. So I think it has helped me like a lot. Like wherever I went in, I don't like try to judge a city based on it as a designer. I always try to judge a city as a human being, so as a civic person there. So that's, I think, the best way to judge it. Because like if I see a designer, try to analyze problems there, but as a user of the city, I try to like use the city and try to get the problems out of it. And in that case, I think one city I feel very much at home is like I don't know, like where I was born, like Cochin, because like I heard like an interesting, what do you call, a quote from a movie like a couple of weeks back, like home is where I can be imperfect and still I won't be judged. So I think the same applies to a city, because like I felt like there nobody cares about like my imperfections or how well I fit in the city or anything. I can be like the way I am. But when I come to a city like Stockholm or Umeå, I have to like adapt myself to the way of living in that city, like even in a very minute way. I'm like the way I can't cross the road just like randomly I do in my home, like because that is how like my city was modeled, or like how our behavior is like built in the city. But here, like I have to like take care of like the lives, and I have to be respectful of all the things. There are good things, all those are good things, but I feel when I talk about home, I think this imperfection, like where I can celebrate my imperfection. That's why I feel like the whole Kochi is where I can call home. I think it's the same for everyone, but like when I'm thinking a bit deeper into all these things, like why is it a home for me? Because I feel, of course, like I know the answers to like most of the questions wherever I am standing. Like I know like when I'm taking a bus, like which route I should go, all those things. But still, these kind of minute imperfections, and I saw that like in Berlin also when I was there. I felt like, man, I feel like this is almost like, I don't know, Kochi or Mumbai, like in uh, Germany, because like there's so many, it was a bit chaotic, and I was enjoying that as a person. So I needed that. But like when I went to Munich, it was like so structured. I was getting a bit of suffocation, like in a way, like this is not the way I want to live, because I am kind of living a different life in that city. But in Berlin, I felt like, man, like this is a place where I'm like, I can be on my own. I can just sit somewhere, like we just randomly cross the road, and maybe these are like bad things as a person, but like as a being in a city, I felt like, yeah, this is what defines a home for me.
Yeah, that's beautiful, because what I'm getting to understand from this is that you want some level of autonomy and anonymity that comes with, living on your own terms, but then somehow that is negotiated within a social contract. Like everyone around you
Yeah.
would probably conform to living on their own terms. And how do you think this can be translated into, say, city making? If you had to think out loud, just if you had to, shot in the dark.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's an interesting thing about how you can transform these into the city, because like it's a bit complex thing, because maybe when think about a city, because I see like a big thing, okay, a zoomed out view, like I see like this map of, let's say, Cochin or like Berlin, like so that's, but like when it zoom in, like there are a lot of complexity at each level you see, like whether it's the infrastructure or the buildings, or like even you get further inside, like into the home, and like how I live there, and maybe that is what like defines like how the city is all evolving. So I think it's better to start from home, like how I can build that around. Like for example, I think we were talking about yeah, that might be different context, where we were designing smart objects inside the home, and we were thinking like how that could be adapted to outside, because like even if it's a home, it's just like a, what do you call, like it's an atom in the whole system of like the city, but like still that builds the whole city. So that's where I think you should start. I think that's what evolves into the whole behavior of the city. Maybe like what I behave in the home, like that's what you see in the city. Maybe that's why like I see like in question, like maybe like the dynamics of the people is different than what you see here. But like anywhere you go in Kerala, there is a thing where like each homes are like surrounded by walls, like the which you build. But here, like you don't see that thing, because like people are like a bit more open, and they know. Or like, yeah, they're totally okay with like someone coming to your house, and like but yeah, it's almost like very open kind of a feel that you get here in Umeå. But in question, like I feel like a bit secluded. There is a respect for my privacy within the home, but at the same time, like I behave as if like I don't know, like these imperfections are like something which I can take out in the city. Maybe I don't know. I'm not sure if that makes any sense, but I feel like it is this. You start from the home and then build outside, rather than like going from the city and building inside.
Yeah, that's interesting because if you look at it, a place where you can be imperfect has walls, but a place that is open and expects you to get along with people doesn't have walls. I mean, I wonder
Yeah.
how that fits in because it's not like there is a set answer to all of that, right? Open
No,
means
no.
no walls. No, that's not true.
It's a really hard question to answer also, like how will I solve for these things like that accommodates me as a person in this city here? Like can I be me who is there in Kochi, it's the same me here in Umeå? It need not be actually like that. Maybe the city is built for a person here, like how it evolved the whole years, like I don't know, like hundreds of years it evolved, and that's what made the city here. And I think uh, it did not accommodate me at all as a person here, but I am the person who kind of like gets accommodated in the city here. So it's a difficult question to answer. Yeah, maybe like I'm not making sense at all here.
No, of course you make sense. But aspirationally, would you like, say, in the future at some point, if a city could become cognizant of your needs? So, say,
Mhm.
for example, someone like you who's lived and habited and contributed to the economies also in different cities, right? So that way, you've as a civic agent, you've participated in cities, not just lived there. You've been a part of the thriving scene there. So what happens then? Shouldn't a city also reciprocate that level of commitment that you make to it in some
In a
sort?
way, that's right, because I think yeah, that way like Umeå is like a pretty interesting what do you call example. So like what I see interesting in this city is like it kind of I see the city as an organism. Like it kind of changes with um, the climate you see. And I'm not talking about like the way snow falls and like how it's covered in snow and all those things, but the other side of it, like how the city take care of your needs at each climate. For example, in summer, you can see benches and things like coming, sprouting up here and there. People will be putting benches. So like they can have like a social life there. As in like it kind of cares for my social need for like having conversation with other people. And like, but during winter, they take it out. So it kind of like totally stays away. It's almost like these things kind of comes out just like, I don't know, different kind of fruits coming out in different seasons. It's almost like this kind of like furniture and things like that comes out in different. So I feel that's pretty interesting because like I've never seen it like that, like in back in Cochin. Maybe like the climate is kind of like same throughout, or like except you have like a bit of a rain, not so harsh or like so diverse like it. So that's something which I find like really interesting in like the city making. Like it's almost like this organism, like kind of like taking care of you, but very naturally. Like I can cite only like this a simple example of like when you go to the center, like you see like a few furniture like in different, there is furniture for like different seasons, like which comes up, like people take it out like in winter so that they can easily clean it, but like in winter like you are not using it, but like the city changes its like the kind of, yeah, you got it right. It's almost like yeah,
Yeah.
this I'm not getting the right word, but yeah, it's, I feel like it's an organism that kind of like changes over time, like throughout the year. And yeah, and sometimes I feel like, man, is it the same place I have been to like last
Mhm.
winter? Because like summer, the whole thing changed, and I was wondering like what happened to all these things. Like they took it away because you're not using it anymore. But yeah, they bring it back like when there is time for you to socialize outside in the summer. But it's so, and like in the winter, like you will see all these gravels and like the salt and around the roads, which is also like, in my opinion, it's almost like the city changing itself. So yeah, that's the only story I can think of, like when it comes to this whole idea. Because like when you talk about this conscious city, because the word itself, I really like that choice of word, because I'm so tired about this smart thing. Smart is like an overuse, but conscious is like, it's almost like you are aware of like what your surroundings. So it's almost like the city is aware of like my needs as a person, like, so it kind of like brings all these things outside, and when it knows that I'm not using that anymore, so it takes the things back. So it's almost like, yeah, that's what I see there. So in a way, this feels like very much like a, what do you call, a conscious city. Yeah, and that's what I feel like as like the way a city could be conscious. Like it's almost like it's taking care of your social needs for a conversation.
Yeah.
If I can.
Yeah, that's very interesting because even as you were speaking as a resident in different places, what it means to be a conscious Kochi isn't the same as what conscious Umeå can be like.
No,
And
totally.
and I really didn't know that they actually took out the furniture. I honestly thought that it got buried under the snow.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
what you feel. No, it's like, yeah, they take it out like in winter because they can easily clean out the snow.
yeah.
And when it's summer, they bring it back so that like people can use it. So yeah, I think, yeah, that's one example which I find like really fascinating, like how the it's conscious about your needs as a person. As I said, like since I am contributing like my taxes or like whatever, it's almost like, yeah, it knows like I need a table right next to my lawn when it's summer so that I can sit there outside and talk to my friends. It's almost like it's building all these conversations by building these furnitures around it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's technically also how urban designers talk about street furniture. Like they're
Ah,
creating these spots for interaction, right? And they hope that they would be used in the way that they were designed intentionally for. But it was a very nice example, actually. Yeah. So just to, and as we are approaching the end of this dialogue, because
okay.
it was amazing, it was really interesting to hear your story. Where are you headed next? What's your plan for the
So
future?
yeah, so that's an interesting question because I always try to understand like what I need as a person when it comes to my work. Because I'm always I'm always in the a course of discovery. Like so, I think everyone is like that. But here, like I'm trying to see like uh, what I can do in an interaction design, because there are some things which I kind of try to work. Some companies which I really want to appreciate, and I want to do the things which they work with. So right now I'm going to Fjord. It's like a consultancy like in Stockholm, and they work in a lot of products and like banking, retail, and transportation, and AI. Like so, it's very broad. So, but as a person, like I feel like I should be, I don't know, a bit more risk taking in my opinion, because like that's why like I always try to change my career like every now and then. So there is always a turn here and there. So now it's like interaction design. I hope like maybe like in 3 4 years, like I'll totally change the course from interaction design to something else. So but that's something which I have to find in the next 3 years. So that's what I'm keeping it for. But uh, answering to your question, I feel I have to like there are certain, what do you call, sectors which I really like to work with. One is food, like how you can like bring food and interaction design, like how you can design interactions around the food, and that could be around the food system itself. And that's something which I've never worked with, but I'm thinking like what can I do there as an interaction designer. So that's a side project which I want to start as soon as like I start working. So yeah, otherwise like I'll be working as a full-time interaction designer, and I'll be using my rest of the time for like some side projects like, yeah, interaction design and food, and interaction design and some other things like languages and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. That's amazing. Thank you. So, as you are headed from Conscious Umeå to Stockholm, yeah, wish you all the very best, and
Okay, thank you so
hope you
much. Thank
find
you
the
so much.
next niche that you would like to jump into. And
Sorry.
hope you find the niche that you want to jump into in
Yeah,
the next few
that's right.
years. There, yeah.
Right. Sometimes I get tired pretty easily with what I'm doing. So far, like it's okay with interaction design because the kind of problems are like very broad. So you're not solving like the same thing every time. But with product design, it was getting like a bit saturated with the physicality. It's good because like you can do a lot of physical things and you can hold it and all those things. But the kind of problems behind them were like pretty stagnated. Like I'm designing a water purifier. It just purifies water, and like when I'm doing the next water purifier, it's the same thing. It's solving. It just purifies water.
Hmm.
What are the things I can do? That's why the interesting thing about experience, I can create new experience for everything. And the problems you get to solve are like a humongous. Like you can think of like a water crisis, or like you can think of like food crisis, or you can think of in a more zoomed in view, like you can think of like ethical problems with your browser in your computer, or you can even think about like experience inside your car, or like experience in a city, or like even a very smaller thing, like you can think about like how you do the grocery shopping, or like how you brush your teeth. I'm like this like it goes from like different scales. So that's what keeps me here, but I'm not sure like how long it's going to keep me here.
Yeah, well, hope the curse of creativity bears you good fruits.
Thank you.